When you're injured, it's pretty hard to just stop everything that you're doing. And as a physiotherapist, that usually isn't the way that we want you to treat your injury. We usually are looking for what's called relative rest. So we want you to reduce a little bit about the aggravating activities, but then we want to keep you moving. So here's a few ways that you can still stay moving without aggravating your injury. So the first thing that we're looking to do is help you focus on the things that you can do. So we are trying to manipulate what aggravates the area and modify that so that we can still get you doing certain things that look like the activity. So if it's running that you're trying to get back to, or if that's the aggravating activity, then we still want you doing things that look like running without getting your full volume in or maybe your full duration in. So when we're trying to understand that, a couple questions you can ask yourself are, how much of your sport can you do before the pain comes on? So that'll give you an idea of where you need to kind of pull back from. And then, does the pain get worse the next day as well? So if you've pulled back and then you're still getting pain the next day, then it might be something that we're still looking into. But those are two questions that you can just start with to kind of help you decide on what you can do and then focus on that. The next thing that we want to try is adjusting the intensity or the duration. So looking at the intensity, you can try and figure out how hard you're working by using what's called the rate of perceived exertion scale. So that's like your RP, if you've ever heard anyone talk about that. So that usually goes from like a 1 to 10. So 1 is like you're chilling, not working very hard, and then 10 is like you're working at your max. And when we're looking at kind of that moderate intensity, that tends to be around that 5, 6, 7, getting into 8 sometimes, and that vigorous is beyond that. And we actually want to try and reduce the intensity for now. So again, we're working with pain, so we want to try and not flare it up and not aggravate it as much. So I try and help my patients reduce that down to maybe like a 2 to 4, something that's just a little bit less effort. So that's a good way that you can try to just reduce that intensity. Another thing that you can do is modifying the technique. So again, if we look at that running example, what you can do with your running technique is temporarily, so this is not like a permanent change. Running retraining has very conflicted and inconclusive evidence in terms of if it actually will help certain injuries or prevent injuries. So what you're actually looking to do with this is just change where the running impact and load is going at the moment. So when we're running with, say, like a bit of a lower cadence or a lower step rate, sometimes that can result in a bit more of a heel strike, which there's no problem with that. But if you're having knee or hip, kind of like upper leg issues, we might want to increase that step rate so that we actually change the load from kind of like knee and hip to then more of ankle and calf complex. So that can just help change the load so we can still get you running without pushing into your symptoms. So that's another way that you can try to modify the technique. Another example would be if your pain comes on with squatting, instead of going full depth, we want you to do box squats, goblet squats, something like that that just slightly changes the technique to reduce your symptoms. And then lastly, what we want to try is including intentional breaks. So as an athlete, I know that it's hard to take a break, but again, we're just trying to manipulate different variables so that your symptoms decrease. So with running, we can include walking breaks, specifically say only walk after 2 minutes of running and then 1 minute walking, something like that. It can be shorter, it could be 30 seconds run and then 1 minute walk. It really depends on your symptoms. And then that can be the same thing with sport or squatting again. It's just making sure that we're taking those breaks so that you're not always looking for the pain. We want to try and stop it before the pain comes on, just because that's been something that you've been dealing with and we want to try and reduce that. Slowly, all of these things you should be able to wean off of and then get back to your normal volume, your normal technique, and everything that you normally do with your symptoms reduced, and then without thinking that your pain is just going to creep back up on you. So try those tips out and see how you go.